Present-day Wyman reveals a side of Jagger that few have seen, a man whose egotism and limitless ambition caused his relationships to break down. Although Jagger's genius catapulted the Rolling Stones to fame, Wyman exposes the price that was paid for their domination. A leader whose dogged control obscured teamwork and strained connections lurked beneath the dazzling exterior. In addition to revealing a rock legend, Wyman's insights reveal the myth's turbulent underbelly, a tale of genius born of bloodshed. Wyman and Jagger's friendship was complicated from the start. Their dynamic was frequently tense, yet the world recognized them as members of the greatest band ever. In several instances, Jagger's inflated sense of self-importance and ravenous desire for dominance clashed with Wyman, the calm and grounded bassist. Even though Jagger's ambition drove the Rolling Stones forward in their early days, it eventually started to drive a wedge between the band members. Because to Jagger's domineering personality, Wyman frequently felt ignored. There was little opportunity for the contributions of others due to Jagger's propensity to claim credit for the band's success and the fact that creative decisions were often taken without consultation. It wasn't simply the lack of acknowledgement that irritated Wyman. It was also the fact that he was a member of a team that frequently seemed to rely on him alone. Wyman felt more like an employee than a collaborator as Jagger's demand for attention eclipsed the collaborative spirit that had once characterized the Rolling Stones. Wyman wasn't the only one with whom Jagger had problems. There was perpetual tension in his relationship with Keith Richards, who was both the band's co-founder and its artistic opposite. Their collaboration was characterized by intense bickering and fights for control, but it also yielded some of rock's most recognizable tunes. In the 1980s, Richards and Jagger had heated arguments because Richards believed Jagger was more concerned with pursuing his solo career than with keeping the band together. The recording of Dirty Work, an album that showcased their artistic prowess and also mirrored their broken relationship, was when tensions reached an all-time high. An antagonistic mood pervaded the whole thing as a result of the confrontation between Jagger's obsession with control and Richards' defiant nature. Producers and bandmates agreed that the sessions were hellish, with Jagger's perfectionist streak and Richards' rebellious attitude making for a toxic combination that could have broken the band. Jagger was troublesome for more than just Richards. The band's steady drummer, Charlie Watts, took a lot of heat from Jagger. Members of the band who were close to Watts noticed his subtle dislike of Jagger's domineering behavior, even though he seldom expressed his views openly. For Watts, who placed a premium on respect and devotion, Jagger's actions frequently went too far, causing an unsaid but profound strain. Even outside of the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger's tumultuous personality was visible. Like his connections with other artists and businesspeople, his ties with other people in the industry were tense and competitive. The man who had been so dominant on stage appeared just as intent on establishing his dominance in each room he stepped foot in, a quality that made him beloved and reviled by others. Although the public witnessed fun rivalry in the headlines, the reality was frequently much more heated. Some of the most famous musicians of the 1960s and 1970s had problems with Mick Jagger because of his ravenous need for fame. Those who shared his meteoric rise to prominence, such as David Bowie and Rod Stewart, sometimes found themselves at odds with Jagger's fierce competitiveness. These were not little disagreements. They were clashes of enormous egos. Jagger's incessant urge to prove his worth and his reluctance to share the limelight transformed potential partnerships into animosities. The feud with David Bowie is among the most infamous. Their mutual star power led to a legendary street dance duet, and the two were previously allies. A covert struggle for supremacy, however, lay beneath the camaraderie. The loud, uncompromising energy of Jagger collided with the mysterious appeal and chameleonic artistry of Bowie. As time went on, Bowie's determination to not be overshadowed by Jagger and vice versa intensified their rivalry. Their friendship devolved into an aggressive competition, with a hint of animosity in their mutual regard for one another. Just being successful wasn't good enough for Jagger. He wanted to be the best. Because of this motivation, even keen rivalries would frequently escalate into full-blown feuds. Similarly structured were his exchanges with Rod Stewart. Stewart and the Rolling Stones' lead singer often butted heads due to Stewart's distinctive voice and flamboyant stage presence, which were on par with Jagger's. Instead of fostering a supportive peer bond, Jagger dominated the conversation with her subtle criticisms and dismissals. The widespread impression that Jagger was tough and unapproachable was a direct result of his urge to control, which alienated more than simply individuals. Many in the industry saw their possibility for greatness in working with him as a double-edged sword, accompanied with the likelihood of strife. Though it was essential to his success, his passion frequently caused alliances to become strained and opportunities to be lost. These disagreements cast a shadow over Jagger's reputation as an inspiring and self-assured leader. Behind the scenes, his desire led to his spectacular rise to power, but it also showed that he was a bit of a tyrant who wasn't keen on sharing the spotlight. Everyone who met paths with Jagger knew he was more than simply an adversary. He was a formidable competitor whose intensity matched his intelligence. Like his career, Mick Jagger's personal life was turbulent, with his relationships suffering as a result of his towering ambition. Despite making headlines and cementing his reputation as a rock and roll Lothario, his love involvements frequently hinted at heartache. Despite the evident charm and charisma that drew the ladies in Jagger's life, staying with him meant enduring the constant pressures of his celebrity. A string of partners who, despite their best efforts, were unable to carve out a space for themselves in his world unencumbered by his fame, followed his pattern of infidelity and emotional distancing in his many high-profile relationships. Relationships were transient for Jagger, who was more interested in the glitz and glamour of his work. In private, the same charisma that captivated an audience on stage would often crumble as feelings of closeness gave way to coldness. His loved ones endured the dual pressures of his job and the public's adulation, a combination that caused them anguish and frustration. The sacrifice of identity that many people had to make in order to love Jagger, their needs absorbed by his enormous, unapproachable persona, was a heavy price to pay. The strain of his ambition extended to his family life as well. In sharp contrast to his emotional absence as a father, Jagger's financial generosity was remarkable. His incessant touring, recording, and public appearances prevented him from spending quality time with his children. Although he was financially supportive, he neglected the relationships that needed his undivided attention, leaving behind emotional emptiness that persisted even after his prominence faded. Even though Jagger's drive for excellence was inspiring to onlookers, it had a devastating effect on her. The same obsession that made him famous also made it difficult for people to get to know the real him. Pride in his accomplishments and the anguish of feeling forever out of reach made for a bittersweet experience for his loved ones and business associates. Stark, the polar opposite of Jagger, could win over millions of fans, but had a hard time establishing the kind of meaningful relationships that bring true happiness to an individual's life. Although his legacy is unquestionably one of success, no matter how brilliant the pursuit of fame may be, it frequently demands sacrifices too enormous to overlook, and it contains an undertone of loss. There is no way to describe Mick Jagger's impact on music other than revolutionary. His charm, intensity, and spectacular stage presence revolutionized the role of the frontman. With performances that left crowds gasping for air, Jagger solidified his place in rock lore as one of the all-time greats. But this genius wasn't without its price, as Bill Wyman shows. An ambivert with a vision for the future who was frequently oblivious to how his actions affected people around him lurked behind the swagger and the limelight. Much of Jagger's controversy stemmed from his obsession with dominating, which also served as the source of his creativity. At times that may have been unifying, his obsession with control turned them into arenas of ego. Collaborating with him was like navigating a river. He was a leader whose vision allowed little space for disagreement or concession. The conflict between Jagger's genius and his humanity is shown by Wyman's confessions. He is portrayed as a man who could both amaze and alienate. Both the music and the tensions that drove the Rolling Stones to greatness are integral parts of their tale. The story of the band is a tale of perseverance through conflict, competition, and selflessness, and their music has inspired countless people. Even though Jagger drove the band to fame with his dogged pursuit of perfection, it also left visible fissures. Relationships were frequently left unresolved and strained due to his alluring appeal, which frequently concealed a harsh pragmatism. Looking at Jagger through Wyman's perspective elevates his legacy beyond that of a mere rock god myth. This is the account of a guy who accomplished great things but also left a dark legacy. There was an argument behind the scenes for every revolutionary song that made it to the top. Conflicts in interpersonal relationships cost money. Those who stood too near to Jagger's intense light would frequently be burned. Finally, just like Mick Jagger himself, the man's legacy is complicated. His achievements will last forever and his brilliance will never be disputed, but his story is a warning about the price one must pay to follow one's dreams. Though they may have won the world, the Rolling Stones' tale demonstrates the toll that fame takes on a person and serves as a sobering reminder that even the most famous faces have shadows that follow them long after the cameras stop rolling.